Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. It's Memorial Day weekend, and we are here with a three-parter that's going to be great. We asked Adam Levin, cybersecurity expert and co-host of the What the Hack podcast, to come on with us so that he can give us an education about some security and scam alerts that are going on. And we're starting off with a conversation with Adam about his interview with Senator Elizabeth Warren. You may not realize this. Elizabeth Warren, who is Democrat of Massachusetts, actually has teamed up with Lindsey Graham, a Republican of South Carolina. The two of them have introduced the Digital Consumer Protection Commission Act, and Adam got a real interesting look at that and an understanding of it, and he was so kind to join us and share his wisdom. Let's start day one of Memorial Day weekend with a first of three parts with Adam Levin. Where do you think that people are kind of missing the mark? Is it just that we're sort of blasé? Is it that, is there something here where we've almost become inured to this idea that, of course, I'm giving up my privacy because that's the world we live in? It just seems every time we turn our head around, forgetting about like a major cybersecurity breach, which, you and I can't control that at a big company. Right. But I'm really talking about like attitudinally. Are we shifting at all with this? Have we recognized, have we gotten to the point where we're like, okay, we need a Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We need some sort of holistic on the ground or grassroots organization to help us get ahead of this?
Well, interesting that you mentioned that because we had an episode on the show with Senator Elizabeth Warren where she talked about her proposed legislation, which, wait for it, with Lindsey Graham.
Amazing. Strange bedfellows this topic makes.
And it's creating a new commission called the Digital Consumer Protection Commission. And it's based in part on the theory behind the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which the senator, fought for many years and was able to achieve. And it really takes a holistic approach as opposed to the piecemeal approaches that have been taken over the years, as she said in our interview, let's look at one issue here, one issue there. With the CFPB, it was debt collection here, credit reporting here, other issues over here. And instead of just doing it and then creating piecemeal legislation, this was a holistic approach so that you had an agency, it could collect data, it could have a consumer complaint line, which millions of people have used, and then it could promulgate rules and regulations. And this is the same thing with the DCPCA.
But it's interesting to me that it's a great model because I think that the argument from industry folks around the CFPB was, wait a minute, the SEC has something where they're watching out for people. The Fed has something. The FDIC has something. State insurance regulators, that's something. And really what this is acknowledging is that because it was never the only focus of the consumer, that there was not one agency responsible for everything, that too much was sliding through. And it seems to me that approach is the same that we're talking about here. And when I listened to your show with Senator Warren, what I found kind of interesting was, I don't know, she was sort of like, I don't know if banning TikTok's going to be such an important thing. She sort of was like that, we're taking our eye off the ball. So can you explain a little bit let's talk about what is going on right now in the world in terms of where your data is being gathered up, how it's being used, and why we need someone to watch out for it.
Well, your data is being gathered up everywhere. We are in what I like to call a surveillance economy. I don't like the fact that there is one, but we are. And that is first of all, you have billions of devices, Internet of Things devices that are gathering data and supposedly sending it back to manufacturers, but they can be hacked into. Everywhere you go, every platform you're on, there is the gathering of data, there is the selling of data, and most of the time we have no idea what it is they're getting, where they're getting it from, how we are exposed, and we are exposed horribly through all of this. And one of the things that the senator talked about in the interview that the DCPCA or the DCPC is going to be looking at is where's the targeting coming from?
Yeah.
Why are you being targeted? And she said, look, I like to buy shoes online because I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a problem if you give me targeted information about my shoe based on my purchasing habits with you.
Right.
What I am worried about is if you're targeting me because you gathered information from someplace else about my purchasing habits and then sending me all kinds of other targeted marketing pieces, that scares me. And she said, the next step, obviously, which we've already seen, is people know your political preferences, your religious preferences, your quirks, all kinds of private information. We certainly know with the anti-abortion legislation that's out there, the information that's being gathered and could be provided, for instance, to attorneys general or other people wanting to prosecute people is terrifying.
Well, I mean, but you've been talking about the fact that we sort of give our data away. How do we, what's the fix? It's already out there, right? But now what?
Well, there's no question the information's out there. But one of the functions of the DCPC with its regulations is to say to these platforms, people need to know what you've got, where you got it from, why you're using it, how long you're going to keep it. And if the information is correct, they should have the right to either correct it or delete it.
Yeah, I get that. That's interesting to me. The pushback would be from every big tech platform. What's the counter to it? We can't do that, or that's too hard. Is it actually a hard fix? Let me start with that as a question.
Well, it's not going to be easy, and these folks are going to fight it. I mean, one of the aspects of the DCPC that Senator Warren talked about is the fact that big platforms will have to be licensed. And if you are chronically abusing consumers and privacy, if you're engaging in monopolistic practices, which we know they all do, and if it continues on and on, even after it's brought to your attention, regulations are passed, you could lose your license, which means you're out of luck.
Yeah. And now you're not in business.
Right. And one of the things she said, you had mentioned earlier, about the whole TikTok issue is he said, yes, I mean, we have to be concerned about foreign ownership. But she said, more importantly, I'm concerned about the data, because the fact is it can be a domestically owned organization that simply, as part of its normal business practices, sells the data to foreign enterprises or people that may have a desire to do horrible things that we don't know about. But they're doing it. I mean, if you just look at what happened with Cambridge Analytica, people thought they were engaging in contests and competitions and all of those things and willingly giving their data. But then nobody realized that it was also being scraped, and everyone they knew, all of their contacts, family members, everything. So 277,000 people became 50 million people.
My God. Let's kind of go back into on the ground as we wait for these odd bedfellows to try to see if something can happen. We're on the ground. What are some of the best practices that you think are important to get a grip at, and recapture our privacy or recapture our data? What should we be doing today before Congress acts?
Well, one of the things that people can do is first go to haveibeenpwned.com. But
what's that?
PWNED. That's the website and it's very safe. And in fact, law enforcement contributes data to it along with everyone else. You enter your email address or your cell phone number, and every place that your information has shown up, they will notify you of.
Really?
And then you can go and say, okay, golly, my passwords are here. And you'll change your passwords, and you'll be more concerned about if you get communications from some of these websites and you think they're legitimate and they may not be. So that's one of the ways. Another way is you conduct what's called a personal privacy inventory. And that's where you start with Googling yourself and seeing where you show up, and then deciding whether or not you want to show up there, especially with all of these data brokers. And there are things you can do through the 3 credit reporting agencies. They have programs that will help you get your data taken off those websites. There are companies like Delete Me where they will, it's not free, but they will go and they remove your data and they will report to you everywhere that they're doing it. The only problem is that it's like whack-a-mole, because every time you think it's off somewhere, it shows up someplace else, or it finds its way to crawl back onto that website. So we have to be constantly vigilant about where our data is. Mm-hmm. And then we have to engage in what I call the 3 M's, which is how do you minimize your risk of exposure, reduce your attackable surface, how do you monitor your data, and then how do you manage the damage if it turns out that your data is out there and being used against you? That's everything from password protocol, multi-factor authentication, never authenticating yourself to someone who contacts you.
Do you think that it is advisable to use, like, I know that a lot of the tech writers that I have talked to, like, some of my friends who I learned this from at CNET, and they really believe in having like the 1Password program. Like, are you a fan of those or not so much?
No, I'm a fan of password.
Can you explain those and like how they work and why we should all be doing it?
Well, password managers can create literally on the fly for you very strong passwords. And if they're multi-platform password managers, which most of them are, it's just a pull down. You pull it down based on the particular website that you're visiting, and you put it in. Mm-hmm. Also, many browsers now have password managers in them where they will save your data. Of course, people are always concerned, well, what if that organization gets hacked? What now?
Right. Well, do I have to worry about that? Now everything's out there.
Well, except for the fact that they use such a high level of encryption that they found in most cases that when a password manager becomes a target of a hacker and they get in, that the level of encryption is so high, they're not really able to do anything with the information.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes me feel better. So listen to this. I know I had like one of those moments where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like something went out there. So then I signed up for 1Password. Then I got scared and I thought, oh, maybe I'll talk to Adam about this before I did it. I literally did. I literally was like, maybe I'm just about to be doing the dumbest thing. I mean, really, I thought that for a second. So you say, do it.
You never do dumb things.
Oh, sure. We all do dumb things. Look, this is a whole new world for so many of us, right? I mean, that's the other thing, is that you have to recognize, like, where does your expertise lie? Mine is not in this. And, I think it's very daunting because, frankly, like, you read this article in New York Magazine about this woman like dropping a bag of $50,000, thinking that she got scammed out of a lot of money. And it starts to feel so out of control that did you throw your hands up and say, it's already all out there. What the hell?
When you talk about the environment, you're absolutely right. Because, when we look in the mirror, we see us, normal people. When a hacker looks at us, they see Jay-Z, Beyonce, Adam Levin. I mean, we're El Dorado for them. And what they're counting on is the fact we're going to be distracted because we all have day jobs. But for them, we are their day job.
If you want to check out the entire interview that Adam conducted with Senator Elizabeth Warren and all of his other great content over at the What the Hack podcast, we are going to put a link to it. If you have a question for us or a comment on some of the things that Adam brought up, don't be a stranger. Even on Memorial Day weekend, just go to JillOnMoney.com, click the Contact Us button, and let us know if you'd be willing to come on the air. Don't forget, you can subscribe to this show on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.